Does your faith journey, your walk with God, often feel heavy, like a responsibility that you're trying to not mess up? Do you find yourself wondering whatever happened to the easy yoke and the light burden that Jesus talked about? I want to share a shift that changed how I understand the kingdom of heaven, and maybe it will help you too. I heard this teaching about the kingdom of heaven, and I hadn't really been exposed to a lot of that before this point in the churches and situations that I had been in. And so it was kind of a new thought. And the teacher asked what we believed about the kingdom of heaven, and kind of gave some examples and talked about some things. And he tried to keep it really loose because he didn't want to plant seeds in our heads. He wanted us to sort that out with God, what we believed. So I asked God to show me what I believed about the kingdom of heaven. And over the course of a few months, he gave me a couple of pictures. The first picture was like this really narrow mountain path, like the kinds that you see that you could fall off the cliff, and maybe some of these really amazing, I can't remember what they called, Sherpas will have their goats and they would walk along this really narrow ledge climbing on a mountain. That was the picture that God gave me about what I believed about the kingdom of heaven. And I thought, oh my goodness gracious, that doesn't sound anything like the kinds of the kingdom of heaven is like that Jesus talks about when he was what's recorded in the scriptures. And then later on, he gave me a picture of a tightrope, walking on a tightrope, that was how I had been believing about the kingdom of heaven. But in between there, I asked God, as I was encouraged to show me what he wanted me to see and believe about the kingdom of heaven. And the first picture that he gave me was a huge sandbox. It was practically a beach. It was so big. And there were other sandboxes nearby. And that was such a huge shift. And so I started thinking about the differences between the two, the tightrope and the mountain, the mountain cliff pathway were dangerous and scary and lonely and like almost hopeless, really, in a way. I had never thought that I believed that until God showed me. And then, but those things were replaced with this whole idea of playing in a sandbox, the delight of playing in a sandbox. Do you remember playing in a sandbox as a kid? That was fun, playing on the beach and building sandcastles and writing things in the sand and watching the waves wash in and wash them out. And when you got tired of building one sandcastle or one project, you'd go over and play with some friends in another. You could invite people into your sandbox and you could go visit them in theirs. And if you didn't like whatever you had made, you could wipe it down, knock it down, and start all over again. And so that was a real shift for me in thinking about the kingdom of heaven and God. And in addition to that, God started just showing me little things along the way, like he had opened my eyes to begin to see these things. Then later, God gave me a picture of a little girl in the woods, and the girl was wearing a white dress and white flowers in her hair, a white wreath kind of a thing in her hair, and white socks and white shoes. Basically, every mother's nightmare about what she would think about sending her little girl out into the woods or outside in nature to play. But the thing was, the shoes and the dress, the socks, nothing got dirty. It didn't pick up anything. And there was this kind presence with me there in the woods. They weren't dark and foreboding. It was like, it was in the woods and it was shady, but it was still bright and light. And I was darting around from place to place as this little girl, picking things up and bringing them back to this gentle presence and showing them and laughing and delighting in them and asking questions. And I don't remember any of the questions that I asked, and I don't remember any of the answers, but they were gentle and kind. They were always gentle and kind and often unexpected. You know how a lot of times when people ask questions, ask Jesus questions, and they're recorded for us, that he answered them in unexpected ways. He didn't he didn't follow the rules. You know, if somebody said, well, teacher, is it this or that? And he would say something entirely different than those two things and kind of break that idea that there's only two options. And then a little bit later after that, I was headed out on a little road trip. And the first part of the trip was familiar. And then I was supposed to turn off at this spot. I was supposed to keep going straight at this spot for a while longer before I turned. But as I hit this familiar intersection that I'd passed many times, I got this little nudge, turn here. And then GPS offered me to turn here. So I took the turn and I ended up in this little country road, this narrow, winding, it was paved, but it was just such a pretty road, and it went up and down with the hills, and there were pastures and cows and little country houses dotting the side of the road. And it wasn't a town or anything, but it was, I'd never been there before, and it was so delightful, and the views were beautiful, and the sky was beautiful, and there was like a pleasant little surprise around every corner. And I just remember hearing God kind of whisper to me, I'm so glad that you took the alternate route and that you chose to go on the adventure with me, that you that you took this invitation to just come and be with me. And with me, there are no wrong turns. Just be connected to me. That's the whole point, is to be connected to me. And I want you to delight in me as I delight in you. And it was like this, I don't even think it was a 7-minute detour, but it was so profound. And I still carry that with me as a picture of what God was showing me about the kingdom of heaven. And it just made me realize that God isn't sending me out on a mission. He's not sending me out to accomplish something all by myself without resources or connection. He's inviting me on an adventure with him. I would love to know how that hits you, what you think about it. It's something that always gets me really excited. I haven't asked God for a picture of what he wants me to see about the kingdom of heaven in a while. Maybe I should. But if you ask God to show you what you do believe about the kingdom of heaven now, and what you think about Christianity, you know, in your walk with him, and how that looks and feels, I'd love to hear what you hear. And if you ask him what he wants you to believe, I'd love to hear that too. You can share in the comments, or I think we're going to be having a group set up that you can join. It'll have some questions to screen, so we're making sure that we're safe, inviting safe people into the group. And I would love to have you, if you're not comfortable sharing here, sharing there. And in an upcoming video, we're going to be talking about online safety, and by then I hope to have the group already. So now I'm rambling, so I am going to stop and turn around and head home. And I want to just flip this around and let you see my road. I love my dirt road and my walk. So thank you for joining me. I'm so glad that you spent this time with me. I'm honored that you would share your time, and I hope to see you in the next video.